Good evening. I call to order the Planning Commission public hearing and regular meeting, August 5th, 2025, Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue. Can I get a roll call, please?
McDonald present.
Newman present.
Holloway present.
White present.
Strands present. Let it be shown that we have a quorum. Can we all stand for a minute of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance? Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anyone object to approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved by common consent. Public hearing. The legal advertisement was a conditional use permit application, CUP 2025-03 from Chris Larimore, developer of Dreams by the Water subdivision, for the review of a proposed comprehensive sign plan as part of a subdivision approval for 3 lots or greater per the Cape Charles zoning ordinance section 5.3 Boleg F. All right.
Right. So, Mr. Larimore is seeking to obtain a conditional use permit for a comprehensive sign plan to place sales and marketing signage, 5 signs and 2 flags on lots 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10 in the Dreams by the Water subdivision off of Washington Avenue. So you have an aerial of the subdivision, then the comprehensive plan review section. And then the section I really want to point your eyes to is under the ordinance requirements. You see the red. So this ordinance is new and it's been revamped to comply with federal law. And from here on, any sign plan that deviates from the listed requirements laid out in section 5.11.1 needs to be presented through a conditional use permit application. And moving on to the staff analysis. So the application presented to the Planning Commission by Chris Larimore for the approval of a comprehensive sign plan within the Dreams by the Water subdivision has demonstrated consistency and adherence to the requirements laid out in Article 5 signs of the Cape Charles zoning ordinance. Furthermore, by recommending the presented conditional use permit application for approval, it shows the town recognizes and accepts that selling off the remaining lots in the Dreams by the Water subdivision is potentially a multi-month-long process, and that the town wants to demonstrate consistency with marketing and sales signs throughout Bay Creek and the historic district, as the applicant wants to match the sales and marketing signs that are currently in Bay Creek. Finally, it reinforces the town's commitment to increasing the housing stock and ensuring properties are getting sold to individuals and hopefully year-round residents.
The applicant's not here, so
Are there any questions or issues from the Planning Commission?
I have a question. I walked by the property the other day, and there appeared to be the 3x4 signs already, or number of signs already out on the property. And is that jumping the gun, or was that something that was allowed before they decided that they would submit this application?
I did allow them to put those up because there was a period of time from when that property was ready to start to be put on the market to when I could get them to a hearing before you. And so it took us a little bit of time to get the paperwork caught up. I did go ahead and allow them not to be penalized in any way, shape, or form, to be able to start letting people know the property is ready for sale. The reason I did that is the development of this particular subdivision has been a little protracted in its requirements. It's been almost a 3-year subdivision development process, which is longer than typical. Some of that due to at that time, the original developer and their unfamiliarity with the laws in trying to bring this project to development. So then they brought in new investment, new monies, and that required, again, a whole nother round of getting things brought up to speed. So this investment has been going on for a long time. That's all I can say.
So it was, your office was aware of what they had done?
Yes, we were
and
aware.
I-
We gave them temporary permission. We also made them aware that if this should be denied, then they would have to remove those signs and come back into compliance with the ordinance. The biggest thing that they are looking, the size is in compliance with the ordinance requirements. It's the number of signs that is the need for the conditional use permit that they are seeking, because it's both the lots and the subdivision as a whole.
So the existing signs comply, but that would sort of be the extent of what is allowable?
That's correct, because they are looking to have a sign placed at the entrance of that, which would then put it on one of the lots.
Yeah.
And there's a limit as to how many signs you can have on each lot under our sign ordinance, as you may remember, in the residential district. And so that's why the conditional use permit was triggered.
And are the additional signs just duplicate in terms of their subject matter to the existing signs?
I'm gonna let Jack speak to that a little further, because I know he's been working directly with Chris on this issue.
So I know the sign, can you repeat the question?
Are the additional signs that they're looking to put up, are they duplicates in terms of the content of the actual signs to what is already the two that have already been put in place?
I know, so on lots 1, 2, 3, and 9, they're all gonna have the real estate signs, like the normal ones that are already out there currently.
Right.
And then on 10, they're also gonna be putting the subdivision sign as well.
Okay.
So the 4x8 sign is not out there yet,
Yes,
Right.
and the flags are not out there yet.
correct.
So I have one question, and that is, the zoning ordinance says that a freestanding sign is limited to 4 feet. So this is going to be greater than 4 feet.
Through the conditional use permit process, yes.
And I just had a couple of random questions. The reference to what's being done from a marketing standpoint and the signs that are in Bay Creek, does our sign ordinance right now extend to Bay Creek?
No.
So that's kind of I got you. I won't use the word, but.
And I appreciate their desire to replicate the marketing efforts that are
Right.
done in Bay Creek, because part of what is, I think, useful when I've looked at the signage, if I'm just an interested person driving through the area and I see that there's potential lots for sale, everything is contained right on that sign
Yeah.
for you to make a determination. I'm interested both in this lot and a proposed house design that's scheduled for this lot as well.
Right.
And so I
Okay.
understand why he is trying to replicate the efforts that Bay Creek has found successful in their marketing efforts.
And what is our remedy, given the fact that, I know this is, I guess, a new developer, right? But the previous group, I assume, left a sign broken in half for years in place that was never addressed. And I know they have specific language in their request saying that they will basically keep the sign in good repair and looking as good as when it was installed. But what happens if that doesn't happen?
We have enforcement, that is the stick we have is enforcement. Again, sometimes the penalties relative to enforcement are not maybe the most desirable, meaning the most immediate solutions. Typically, they don't always come with a cash penalty.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a requirement to bring them into court and to bring them up through a misdemeanor, class 3 misdemeanor process.
Right.
Which is timely and not always achievable and the most satisfactory results of what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
I can say Mr. Larmore is personally invested in this development, and he will continue to own real estate. He will own several of the lots after he has sold the lots that are up for sale at this point.
I mean, I know he seems to be a more cooperative partner with the town in terms of what he's trying to do and making sure
Yes.
he's doing it correctly at this point, so.
And he's actually not just a property owner here, he's a property owner elsewhere in Cape Charles, specifically in the Bay Creek community, and is building a residence there as well.
Gotcha. And can I ask you one more thing, and then I'll be done with this topic, but can you help me address people who've come to me and said, how is that allowed? That seems to be a clear violation of our new sign ordinance. And I know that things
How
are,
is what allowed?
what he's asking for. And I know that the conditional use permit is the avenue to that.
Yes,
Is that new in our sign ordinance?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And when was all that sort of put through?
December 19th, 2024.
There we go. I just want that to be on record for
Yeah.
people who like, so that I can remember that. All right. That's all I had to ask about it.
May I make a motion to approve as presented?
Can I make
Second.
one tweak?
Oh.
It's a recommendation to
Recom-
approve.
Recommendation, that's right.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second. So I have a motion and a second to approve forwarding this to town council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, thank you. Unfinished business. Nothing. New business. Review of incorporated changes to the draft zoning text amendment of Cape Charles zoning ordinance Article 7, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance to finalize for submission to the town council to commence the public hearing process on said zoning text amendment. Katie, you're on.
Okay, so you have seen this before. This is in slightly cleaner condition than the last time you saw this. That's what we've been working on the last 2 months. We have now incorporated all of your agreed upon changes. And when I say agreed upon, there were certain items that had been flagged by DEQ in their review of this that needed some decision-making to occur before we bring it out to public hearing. And so we asked you to take that upon and to do that work. And so that's what we've now fully incorporated here, still shown as a tracking document. It is cleaned up. I've tried to remove just about all of their comments. I'm sorry I didn't get the gray thing off the side. I'll figure this out one day how to get that off. Microsoft Word and its helpfulness in formatting is the bane of my existence sometimes.
You can just turn track changes off.
I actually have.
Like it should, that should be the thing that does it.
It did not. So with that said, but there are still changes we are tracking, which are the internal staff changes to the red line version. So we thought we'd gotten all the comments off, but anyway, with that said, here we go. So with that said, we're gonna hit each page to see if you have any further changes, if I didn't incorporate something correctly. And we've also provided to you, I think you got it by email, but I think Jack has also provided you the hard copy. We did get comments from Claudette along the way, so I just wanted to make you aware that that's sitting out there. And we have actually started to review those, so some of those we are going to be making because we feel they're just grammar or correction issues in the editing process. We actually agree with them. There were a couple I believe she made. I can't say I've had a chance to fully review them. There are a couple that may require some conversation amongst us this evening. So with that said, so I'm on page 51 of your agenda packet itself that was emailed to you, or if you have a hard copy, page 1. Sorry. We had no further changes on that page, so I'm going to keep on moving us down. And the next page, we do have some tweaks to the resource management area. Again, this was a big one that we talked about the last time. This is a policy decision where we could do it based upon features or a sheer measurement component. And from our discussion last time, we did elect to recommend that it be based upon a measurement component, 100 feet in width, landward of the resource protection area, and not based upon a features consideration.
Comment? I would like to change that text and remove the words "a minimum of." I think it ought to be, I thought we discussed it would just be a firm 100 feet in off the RPA, and a minimum of gives somebody in the future the choice to create that to be as large as they choose to. And so I would like to see those words struck.
Is this meant to be, like if you're looking at the back of a lot and it's 100 feet, that width? Or is it meant to be from the front of the lot to the back of the lot?
It's wherever the lot is adjacent to Chesapeake Bay watershed waters, whether that's tidal waters, whether that is, so for example, it could be the bay itself, it could be one of the creeks. So depending on whether that creek is at the front of your property, the side of your property, the back of your property, that's what gets measured from.
Yeah, so I don't know whether the word width is actually appropriate here, because you're talking about, let's just say it's on the side, and you have to come in 100 feet. If it's on the back, you have to come in 100 feet. If it's on the front, you have to come in 100 feet. So that's not necessarily width, that's just a distance.
Well, it's the width of however that line, once it's measured, running across your property. So it's not necessarily a straight line, it could be an angled line, for example, depending on the size of your lot.
Right.
So
And it does say in width landward of
the resource protection
of the
area, because the
RPA.
RPA gets measured first, just again as a primer. So I'm gonna pick on the Chesapeake Bay itself. So I'm saying up on the Colony, off of those lots up there, up on the north side of Bay Creek. So I'm on the Colony, I'm in one of those right there with waterfront. Some of those lots have a pretty narrow frontage onto the bay itself, but there are a couple on either ends that have kind of a little raggedy, I won't say raggedy, a curved edge. And so, yes, we measure the RPA for where the average mean high water mark ends, and from there we measure 100 feet in, that's the RPA.
Okay.
And so that may not fall as a straight line onto the property, it may come in based upon that curve in some sort of angle. So that's what we measure, and that gets marked on the survey of the RPA. And now from that, we now have the RPA, we then will add another 100 feet for what is the RMA. And that will also then get marked on the survey, and that will help us determine where development can occur in the RPA or not in the RPA per se. And then in the RMA, where the development is going to occur, but where we also want to retain as many of the planting features associated with that for the RMA.
So I think the question that was asked, though, is the word in width the proper term in there, or is it just 100 feet in distance or something like that? Because width caused the question.
It's 100 feet in width, so it's wherever the RPA line gets measured,
Okay.
then it's going to now be pulled another 100 feet, which could be again a curve, or it could be straight back, it's like a square, or it could be an isosceles triangle for all I know. So,
I mean, I see what you're saying. You're more like saying just a distance of versus length, width, or whatever, but.
because it's not just a point to a point, it's this point from the edge of from one side of your property to the other side of your property, of your deed, and wherever that RPA sits on it of 100 feet, and then we're going to now measure another 100 feet for RMA, and that's going to get marked on your site plan. Okay? And again, we've just made it clear that anything that's occurring portions of RPAs and RMAs for intensely developed areas, we wanted to ensure it says both development and redevelopment areas of those parcels. And then we come down to 7.6. We made some changes there, again, confirming that we mean development and or redevelopment on IDAs, which again are intensely developed areas that have already been pre-identified by the town. And then we put in the exceptions where if it's for a road coming in, that's an allowed exception to occur in the RPA on an IDA lot. It does put in the criteria that has to be adhered to when we receive such applications of that, specifically with the water quality impact assessment and a resiliency assessment. And again, the resiliency assessment is a new component of the state law. So then moving on down, on page now 3 or 53. Again, we detail this even further here, all the way through. So again, if you have any questions on this,
You've got, do you want misspellings, or are you going to catch those later?
if you see them, note them for us, because I've read this multiple times, it's driving me insane, I have to be honest.
On page 53, item 4, you've got stormwater is misspelled.
Okay. Okay. And, we're taking out some sections of this as well, so moving now on to page 4 or page 54. Again, we're adding all the buffer area requirements here. Again, just to note why there's some colors highlighting at this point, that is the required language coming out of the ordinance and the regulations themselves. Everything else is coming out from the model ordinance that the state drafted to meet the regulations and the law itself. So I just wanted to distinguish between those two tracking elements. If there are no questions, comments, or corrections, I'm going to move on to page 5.
So,
Go ahead.
looking at the handout from Dr. She says, will consideration of other trophic level plantings be considered, such as native small canopy trees and shrub species in locations of increased shoreline erosion, wind events, highly erodible soils, etc.? Does that fall, does that have to be spelled out, or
It was confusing that parts of the document say appropriate plantings, so a tree may not always be the appropriate planting to go somewhere in terms of either a mitigation component or water quality. So trophic is just giving you now a way to layer the vegetation appropriately. So if you had to put trees back on a shoreline, that may not give you the best buck, because if you have a wind event, it's now going to pull that tree down, pull the stump out with it, and you're going to have a larger erosion problem that you're trying to avoid. And so just wanted to clarify, if just because it's other places, it says trees or other appropriate native vegetation, and in that location, it kind of just said trees. So that might be kind of a global comment, just to make sure the appropriate vegetation is in the right spot.
We're still referencing and using the last guide put out by the state relative to tree planting. So DEQ still has not updated it. And this is back when it was still under DCR, who used to administer, Department of Conservation and Recreation, specifically the Chesapeake Bay Local Assistance Division of DCR used to administer the Chesapeake Bay Act. And they printed the last manual that actually had all the species by that very thing, some being shrubs, and they would help give you that layered effect. So that actually is still the guidance and reference book that we utilize when we're reviewing RPA planting issues. And yes, we do now layer it in with the now produced Eastern Shore Native Species Guide, because DEQ is allowing us to use that as some of the species choices, but they still are asking us to use their DCR manual for the tree plantings, for that sort of staggered planting effect. Yeah. So until they update that manual, I'm still stuck with living in an old manual that they say is gonna be updated at some point. I don't know when. So, but I understand her comment. I just want to tell you that's how
I
we're
got you.
administering it today.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Then I'm on to page 55. Again, this continues with all the additional of the tree language, all the new stuff coming in from the state law. Any comments, questions there?
We're on page 55?
Page 55 or page 5 of your packet?
Yeah, okay.
Page 56 or page 6 of your packet? Any comments, questions there? No? Okay. Page 57. Page 7, same thing. Moving on then, page 8. 58. Okay. 9. And again, I know a large section of this doesn't apply to us because we don't have ag land. We don't have, for the most part, septics or wells or things of that nature occurring in our community. But they are required in the ordinance, and it doesn't mean we won't ever not have those things. There's a potential this town could always expand and have that sort of zoning occur in our community, or have those needs expressed, because our water and sewer doesn't extend to those properties that got incorporated into the town. So we have to have the language in here.
So what's in highlight on paragraph 2 with regard to the consider the planting of trees as a component? This will change when the state gives new language?
That is the language, no, that is the language. The highlight is, that is the specific wording in the code that they put in, that the state put in.
Yeah.
So that's not flexible, like, so in number 2 on that page, in intensely developed areas, all that wordsmithing there could be changed, but what's highlighted in yellow is the exact language I am required to have in this ordinance.
Okay. The only reason I thought about this is we don't have trees out on the Bear Islands, but we do have seagrasses that slow down water. And Ms. Claudette knows more about this than I do, in a great way. But it seems like that kind of language should be in here.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind, for intensely developed areas, so that covers the former Toddy property is an intensely developed area. The marina up at the oyster farm is an intensely developed area.
Yeah.
So it's not like all of Cape Charles is an intensely developed area. So part of it is, I'm not saying trees can't be a consideration or some other types of planting materials, but if there are trees, then that's one of the things they want us to consider on those areas, because there's probably a presumption, if it's already intensely developed, there's
Right.
probably no trees there. So they would like that to be a consideration for some restoration of those brought back into those IDA properties. So, as I come across on the other side, the concrete plant is
Yeah.
also an IDA,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Okay. Just moving down to page 10, I think that's where we are. Or page 60. So again, there's just again, adding in the language relative to the mature trees. Page 11. Again, this is, again, required language as it relates to septics. So again, I won't say there are no septics in this town, just so you're aware of that. There are a couple of areas with septic systems that are off of Old Cape Charles Road. Okay. Page 12, it's continuation of that.
You've got a formatting issue, and look at number 7, it should be completely deleted, and you just left the 7 with nothing in that whole area, so it needs to go away so that 8 becomes 7.
Yeah, it will once I accept all the changes. It'll change the formatting and get the numbering to run correctly, but I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
We'll verify that.
Verify that one goes away.
Okay. Moving on to page 13, that's where I am. Hearing nothing. No changes from you at this point. Page 14. And again, that was a finishing out of adding required language and then removing what was the old language that had been in our ordinance before. And that runs until we hit page 16, where we start with the water quality impact assessment and resiliency assessment. Again, that is the new component of our ordinance coming in. So we've always had a water quality impact assessment requirement under the Chesapeake Bay Act. The resiliency component is the new feature. Any changes or comments on 16? Moving on to 17. And 18. And 19. I did leave a different color here on 19, because again, part of this is I do want to have that conversation with the council when this moves out to public hearing with them, before we advertise it for public hearing. I wanted to make sure I'm talking to them about that particular component. Sorry, it's green on my screen, it's blue when we printed, I think, or gray, or dark gray. Sorry. So page 20,
So that's what you had asked us to look at last time, correct?
yes. So I didn't know if you've had any further feedback or thoughts. I'm not hearing anything, but I do know, that's why I highlighted, because I do also need to talk with town council about that in particular, yes.
Did anybody look at that model?
I did. You're talking about the FEMA rate, right? The 100 versus the 150
Yeah.
year. Personally, 100 year, I preferred the 100 year versus the 150 year, but that's just me.
Okay.
I concur.
What's going to be the effect to, I mean, if you change to 150, is that going to lower the cost of the land or driveway various?
If we have to plan for a 150-year flood, I would not presume that would decrease the costs associated with development. You would have to plan for a greater risk on your property based upon those models.
You know, so, contrasting.
Okay, so I will share that with council as well.
Okay.
Moving on to page 20 or 70 on the online version.
Just as a frame of reference, you always have the city of Virginia Beach and the city of Florida are really progressive in their flood models right now as a source of other information to compare to.
Yep.
They put a lot of money into flood programs lately, so it might offer good solution or comparison.
Any comments on page 20 of all the changes that are coming in? And again, this is all dealing with the resiliency assessment. So this is the new state model that they're trying to bring every locality to this sort of analysis. And page 21, continuation. Part of this again, and we will, once we move this out and we get these changes finally incorporated, we will do the final editing and proofing to make sure we've got all the internal section citations correct. Because this is a hard document again to read, to make sure you're following what references, what chapters or sections it's referring back to. And moving on to 22.
So on 22, if you go back actually to 21, it says for 7.11, any development or redevelopment within the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Areas, ... So we're assuming this whole section refers to development within the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area. And then on 4, it finishes with, however, this requirement may not be waived for projects located on parcels impacted by the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Areas. So that end sentence, I don't understand why it would be in there, because it's already, we're talking about parcels in that. So I think 4 needs to be revisited, because we're only talking about things that are in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area, if I read it properly.
I'm sorry, Ian, I'm just catching up to where you said 4. So start at 7-11.
And then go down to B4,
Okay.
that whole, this requirement may be waived, ought to be deleted, because this whole section refers to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area.
Okay, sorry, I have to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it starts back, yes. So I'm dealing with anything that's gonna have 2,500 square feet of land disturbance, would require going through plan and development process. Tells me all the required environmental site assessment. That's gotta be submitted in conjunction with, same scale. You're correct, so yeah, I'm starting to wonder why that language would need to be in there.
I agree with Ian, we gotta take it out.
So I will, I have a call scheduled with DEQ staff tomorrow, because they knew we were having this meeting tonight. So I will talk to them about that particular area, because I know that was proposed language that was in the model ordinance. So I'd like to get some clarity on that. Calls on page 22. Okay. Thank you. Requirements of the landscaping plan. And then moving on to page 23, the requirements, again, these are changes from the stormwater plan section of things. And changes to the erosion and sediment control submission. And then page 24, changes made to the final plan submission requirements. And then there's no changes on 25. 26, there is one addition added into the last number 7 there. And then there's just some, under the next section, moving on to page 26 through 27, there's just some cleanup issues occurring in the exemption section.
Just an editorial in 13, on B on that page, you end up with a the, based on edits in there. A the, open bracket, and then another the. So there's, at the Virginia Department of Forestry in the, and then there's an open bracket, the 5th edition. So those are some that are hard to find.
Too many those. Got it.
There was an old new wave band called they were the.
Okay.
Not to be confused with da.
Exactly.
And then the exceptions section starts on page 27. Its edits really hit on page 28. And again, through this language, they call them exceptions, variances, waivers. In terms of when we're going to be using that terminology, we're gonna rely upon exceptions because we have variances under our zoning ordinance that have different connotations, and so keeping this as an exception language or exception title or process works for us, so that way I know it's a Chesapeake Bay issue when I say exception versus a variance that could be anywhere in the zoning ordinance.
And the bottom of 78, there's a dollar amount. Do you want to change that to just refer to, there's a XXX dollars, or don't we tend to just leave those dollars out and refer to the town fees?
Yes,
If
I
I've been trained
will, I
right.
will be recommending we strike that, because we adopt our fee schedule annually at this point from the town.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay? And page 29, that continues the further changes for the exception process. And that finishes edits to Article 7. And then we have edits to the definition section. So I gave this to you two ways, the full definitions chapter, but I also gave you a 3-page handout with the specific definitions being added in. If you want to go through it page by page, we can, or you could look at that specific handout in here somewhere. Sorry, it's probably towards the end. But I was adding in all the new definitions that we felt should be included into this ordinance based upon the changes made, especially in the resiliency assessment pieces, things dealing with mature trees, along those lines of changes. So, I can't put my hand on it fast enough, Jack, sorry. It's too much paper. Sorry. It's page let's go back here. 158 in your handout, packet. Your online packet. It says terms and or edits to be added to Appendix A definitions. So again, we're looking to add definitions for adaptation measure, canopy tree. We're gonna tweak the current definition of development, to add a section of defining it within the Chesapeake Bay Act, usage. Adding in fill. Again, tweaking the definition for floodplain to apply something for the Bay Act. Adding in freeboard, land disturbance or land disturbing activity. Limit of moderate wave action. Living shoreline, mature tree, nature-based solution. Again, a tweak to the plan of development definition. Public road, storm surge, and understory tree are all the definitions that are going to be added or edited through this process. And then we have a little tweak that had to happen. Sorry, I gotta get myself down there. And that starts on page 114 of your online packet. And it's to the Appendix C site plan. There were a couple little tweaks that had to happen within the site plan ordinance section as well, specifically under Section 4, required information for your site plans that are coming in now, plot plans or site plans. They now need to have certain things identified on those plans, specifically where the resource protection area and resource management area are. And they need to be shown on there. There has to be notations of them as well on those notes. So, that's it. So, do we want to go back and look at Claudette's comments to see if we missed anything substantial? I can't say I was tracking at the same time, but we can go do that now.
One question, you included things that go all the way to section 74, wetland zoning ordinance, where you're not making any changes?
No, I meant to take that out. Because
Okay.
I had copied out of our original zoning ordinance. I thought I deleted those pages, but I guess I got a little sloppy towards the end of trying to delete those sections out of our
Well,
ordinance.
if we're making updates, we have all these definitions of Back Bay and its tributaries that look like they were stolen from Virginia Beach and things like that? And
There are
do
actually requirements in the state law as it relates to your sand dune or wetlands board. So those are required definitions under those particular ordinances.
Okay. It didn't seem like it made any sense over on the eastern shore of Virginia or anywhere else in Virginia other than,
I understand.
The other side of the
They wrote a
tunnel.
state law.
okay. Thank you. It struck me as if we're cleaning things up, that could be
No,
cleaned up, but
That
no.
was my fault. I didn't excise that chapter or appendix out because they had no changes to it. That was sloppy on my end towards the end. I was just Jack can attest. I was struggling with the formatting. It was not my friend through this process. There's quite a bit. Any other questions, comments, or can we focus, do you want to go over Claudette's comments to see if we missed anything, or we should come back and figure out what we want to do from here?
I mean,
or
can you just
recommend?
help us clarify from Claudette's notes? I mean, you mentioned
I
that
really have not had a chance to review her notes
Okay.
candidly.
I mean, I know a lot of
because
this
I came in
is
morning.
language that
Some
you're
of
not
it's
at
pretty
liberty to
good,
change.
some of it's pretty good from.
Yeah.
So let's,
brief.
if we can take some time now, can we go through it? Because again, I have not had a chance to really digest this.
Okay.
So her first thing she was asking was on page 56. I think we talked about this one. No, we didn't talk about that. We did 54.
And her notes on page 54 essentially were language that you're not really at liberty to change, was what we said,
Right, so I'm
until
happy.
they update.
Right. Page 56, again, I'm happy to see if DEQ is going to have any heartburn if we change that language, but I'm okay if that's what we want to put in. Okay? Also on page 56, actually, VMRC is the clearinghouse for all the permitting agencies, so that is why we use the terminology of VMRC for this.
I would clarify that then, because it's misleading. Like, then put VMRC clearinghouse, because the way it's written, it makes it sound like that's going to something.
But when you,
Because you're saying approval from VMRC, you're just submitting your application to the VMRC clearinghouse. They're not giving you, they're gonna give you their approval for their portion of the permit, but going through the clearinghouse, all of those shoreline projects still have a federal permit that's required to be obtained from them. So I just didn't want somebody to all of a sudden go, well, I only need a permit from VMRC, when
No.
that's kind of how that.
no, but it says that in the VMRC permit application that you have to go obtain those approvals through the federal agencies as well, yes. So if you need an Army
But the
Corps,
clarity of the ordinance that we're talking about here versus what's on their website.
we
Again,
can,
these are all just suggestions
sure,
for
sure.
clarity.
So we can add that if that will help for clarity's sake, but I know VMRC is where we direct everybody to, because you fill out that application through VMRC, that gets funneled out to the federal and state agencies that oversee these things, and they let you know if there are additional permits required from those federal or state agencies. So, but I'm happy to add that language if that will help. Okay, on page 58. What section is this in?
It's page 58, 4.
Okay, sorry, I gotta go all the way back to see what am I dealing with? Permanent modifications to the buffer areas, where it starts. Adaptation measures.
So I can clarify, the comment is just allow stabilized, but you could likely have a storm with a large rain event or a large water event for which all of that fill material has just sloughed off and caused a discharge into the adjacent water body. And so you can kind of look for suggestions in or make a reference to the Virginia Stormwater Handbook, that kind of manual for what would be an appropriate practice in those instances, because often a lot can happen in 7 days when 2 or 3 of those 7 days potentially might be a large water event.
So the challenge is, this is the ordinance says 7 days, and you're trying to put the best practice into the ordinance, and so I don't know what's the
So
right way to
there
do
might be
that.
just some language you want to consider for, some interim best management practice, because often a contractor could walk off the job literally for those 7 days and left that fill slope uncovered or not stabilized yet. And this way you have another way. So some of these may be what you read, what the code is saying, but then in practice is a different theory.
Sure, I almost think, Claudette, if you look at C, right after where that is in small IV or small 4, where it talks about ensure that the fill area is vegetatively stabilized within 7 days. Then C does talk about the use of fill shall not exacerbate stormwater runoff and lateral flow onto adjacent properties, shall be controlled, and then it gives again 4 steps there as to how that process needs to occur. So again, I'm having to talk with DEQ staff to see if we need to bulk up that language beyond that section, but I think that sort of addresses your concern.
Yeah, it jumped out as me as something that was a little vague, and so DEQ says the language is fine.
I'll talk to them, okay?
All suggestions.
And then page 59. And you're looking at,
What are the implementing measures you're going to be using?
Sounded a little open-ended.
consider the planting of trees as a component, okay?
Yeah, where it said, measures that would establish vegetation in the buffer in these areas over time. Again, it's a little open-ended, is that you can keep coming back and requiring them to do more, or that's a period in which the plants are growing. Some, mitigation plans can require a monitoring period based on the vegetation. So that does ensure that the plantings are viable and growing, whether it can vary from 1 year to 10 years, depending on the kind of project, depending on the kind of vegetation. But it just, again, this was another area that kind of left it a little open-ended on interpretation. Somebody could feel they completed something and the town could come back in a year and say, we don't think you've done it right. But there's not, that loop just needs to be closed.
I'm not sure it's necessarily a loop. I think basically it's saying, so again, in IDAs, the zoning administrator may exercise discretion regarding whether to require establishment of vegetation in that 100-foot buffer. And if that is required, they're just asking if the zoning administrator give consideration to potentially a time-measured establishment of vegetation in the buffer versus an immediate buffer establishment. So I think it's just saying, don't just presume you plant large trees, full-grown trees, but also give consideration to the applicant or the property owner's request to consider a delayed growing pattern implementation. So I'm not sure it's necessarily open-ended for me to come in and require new buffers come in, or new establishments of buffers. but rather when they are coming in to do a development plan, that I give some thought to some delayed implementation of that tree plantings. It's not just necessarily a large-scale tree going in. Now, we can consider something more on a time measure basis.
So maybe that language that you just said?
I think that's how it reads
Yeah.
now.
Like, would kind of clarify, like, understanding that you've read this 10,000 times, so as I'm reading it, these were things that were kind of jumping out to me as
Sure.
not as clear. So I understand the concept that you're getting, and kind of how you said it is a lot more clear than,
I read it exactly the way it's written.
but the reality, when you have that part of over time,
It says that I shall give consideration to implementing measures that would establish vegetation in the buffer in those areas over time. So that the property
but
owner,
can you clarify the over time part?
so it's allowing the property owner to come forward and advance measures that could be established over a planting period of time versus having to do a large-scale purchase of full caliber trees with a root ball system, et cetera, to be planted in.
Are you allowing that it would have to be complete, you can do it over time, but a completion date of X number of years?
It could be, that could be, it could be the discussion and resolution reached with the property owner in their submission.
So that could be a topic of negotiation.
It's a conversation I have when any property is being proposed for development. I'm having those conversations now with property owners. So, okay. On page 66. Page 66, submission review requirements. See on 66, 68. This is where we are. Okay, submission and review. So again, what am I submitting and reviewing? Major water quality, okay. Differentiation of submission requirements for major and minor. The minor are processed accordingly due to the limited impacts. I think I do have that delineated in here.
And I was, in full disclosure, like trying to jump from the major to the minor to make sure what the requirements are.
Sure.
It's just the clarity of, obviously a major water quality impact assessment does exactly the title. It's a more major impact versus the minor. Should have a much easier process in terms of submittal. Normally, most localities, it's an email submission as part of your application. It doesn't have to be a certain number of sets of plans or copies or paper associated with it.
Sure. This one takes a little bit longer, so I'm not gonna be able to give you an answer on this one tonight, because as she said, yeah, we kind of have to look through our application process, look at the flow again, so I will revisit that one more time. And it looks like your next comment is referencing the same thing. This actually is a holdout from our current ordinance. This is something that the town has had in place from the creation of the Chesapeake Bay Act in the town's local ordinance. Where and I'm going to presume why they put this language in, is because we did not have the staff skilled in reviewing some of these things, and so they wanted to involve DEQ staff to help in that review process. At that time, it was the CBLAD staff, now it would just be DEQ, and if we wish to retain that sort of involvement with them, DEQ is happy to help us. Again, that's not language that they propose in the ordinance, this is just retaining our existing ordinance language. It may not take them 90 days at this point in time. I can have that conversation with DEQ. If we do need to involve them to review one of these applications for us, what is their turnaround time to review that for us? I can find that out.
And that was partially it. Often if you give them 90 days, they won't look at it till day 89 because they know there's other branches. So that's where normally they're 30 to 45 days
Sure.
is normal for other organizations and so, or other entities that may work with them. And so your project doesn't keep getting to the end of the pile, and
I understand.
at day 89, they come back and ask you for more information and start the clock over again.
Okay. Page 70.
And this could be me, because I was then, maybe I don't have the full document. I kept trying what section 108 referenced.
No, that comes out of the model ordinance, and section 108 is the major water quality impact section. Major water quality impact, so whatever section number that is for us now,
Okay.
sorry, which is section, it's in here somewhere. Section 7.10.
I was just like, I was reading that, I was like, did I read section 108?
No, that came out of the model ordinance, and that was the major water quality.
Understand.
Good catch.
Yes,
Well, I know you're trying to merge the model and this together, so when I
awful.
kind of something jumped out, it'll be easier once all of the changes go in and you can read
Yes.
like a document about track changes, for sure.
Page 71. Wetlands delineation.
And this was just where it says from time to time. I would just strike that for kind of a clarity perspective.
Let's see where I am on this page, sorry.
Like the methods performed for wetland delineations are set by the Army Corps of Engineers, and if it's,
It's on
that's what the rule is today,
It's
it's
on
not
page
what the law is
72?
tomorrow.
Sorry, I just couldn't find your numbering section. It's on actually page 72.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
computer copy versus paper copy choices. I kept going back between the packet page number and the actual page number.
Okay. You can add that one.
And again, when you have more time, certainly,
Yep.
if there's something unclear, just give me a call.
And we'll do another proof to make sure we're referencing the correct document, the correct handbooks, the correct manuals that DEQ's now using for these various things. And we'll make sure it's consistent through the document.
Yeah, and a couple of them just jumped out, like when you see like a 1999, like in most cases, that's been updated within the last 10 years because we've had so many changes
Right.
at the federal and state level, so that was just a global, just to have somebody do a Google search of
Yep.
state code.
I think that covers this document. Okay, so with that, my intent is I'm bringing this to the town council agenda in 2 weeks' time.
It's already on the, no, I'm sorry, that's the cup, it's already on the, I know it's being advertised.
This is not being advertised.
No, the previous, the CUP that we just,
Oh, the cup is, yeah, the cup is already, on for public hearing to the town council, yes. That's always a known thing. You've actually not had your public hearing on this yet.
no, I know that, yeah.
Because I wanted to get your feedback before we sent this out to the town council, for them to initiate it moving through public hearing process.
Right,
So that is the goal, is I will kick this to the town council for their August meeting. And I do mean their third Thursday of the month of August, for them to receive this document and then start the formal process. That will kick it back to you formally for public hearing, and then back to them for public hearing. So the goal is, I don't know if it'll make it all the way through the September calendar, or if it's gonna run into October on their calendar. That is what we're trying to achieve and work towards. Okay?
yep. So, moving right along, standing staff reports.
Oh, these large packets, I can't handle them. Here we go. So a couple of items, so yes, we have approved the phase one, the villas at Magnolia Park and And that's now finalized. There's a 2 phases to that particular subdivision, so we're only moving forward with phase 1, which puts 48?
There's total of 48.
No, there's more. But 48 is in phase 1. There's some more lots.
In that area, I don't think so.
Or maybe, sorry, Bill, I should do this. Maybe in phase 1, we approved.
I think you,
I'm gonna look at the map on the wall now. 26?
it's got like, they're building.
Maybe it's 26. 26 got approved in phase 1. Phase 2 will fill it out to get us to a full complement of 48. There it is, sorry. And it used to be known as Village L. When I talked about this in prior reports, they did finally name it the Villas at Magnolia Park. And we also did a vacation of the lot line in the Hollies. So yes, that also got HOA approval in Bay Creek, because again, if you start to change the number of residential lots and approve subdivisions, that impacts the funding structure for the HOA. So we get them involved to ensure that they have dealt with whatever associated dues per lot requirements are there for the HOA. So I just want to make you aware of that when it's been approved. We had no applications for the BZA, nor harbor, nor wetlands at this point. However, I do want to make you aware, we did get an application in on, what's the concrete plant's name? It is Coastal Precast Systems. They have filed an application to do some substantial work on their property in anticipation of federal projects that they are pursuing. In particular, they are, I think, at this point tasked to receive the federal reconstruction project for the bridge in Baltimore, the major bridge collapse that happened last year. And so, yes, they're going to have to do some modifications of layout on their own property, and part of that will impact into the wetlands, a small little piece of wetlands and some other changes. I did report on this in my weekly report last week. We're still reviewing that whole application. I've been talking with VMRC and VIMS on this as well to make sure what responsibility the Wetlands Board has in this matter, if any, if the permit is required from them or not. So I think we're to err on the side of caution. I do not think a permit is going to be triggered to them, but we're going to bring them into the loop and let them review the application just so they're familiar with it and know what's going on. And at the town council, most recent meeting in July, I did enclose that agenda item that occurred over there. So they received a request coming in from the Historic District Civic League to ask the council to do a review and consider a zoning text amendment request relative to accessory dwelling units and the potential opening them up for use as STRs. So we wanted to give you the heads up that this is coming back in your direction. We hope next month. I think we'll have all of our staff work done by then to bring this forward for you to start discussing this for consideration if you wish to recommend to the town council any changes to the accessory dwelling unit language in our zoning ordinance as it relates to being allowed to have STRs in them, which would also then trigger changes to the STR ordinance if that was such a recommendation. Just to recall, and I think it's all included in your packet as well, ADUs currently have a prohibition on STRs. So, and they align with the comp plan, and that also was noted at the council meeting, that if we are seeking such a zoning text amendment to allow ADUs to have STRs, we would also need to seek a comprehensive plan amendment to make that more consistent to be with the comprehensive plan before we can change the zoning text.
From 60 to 30, and I thought we'd stay, and that went to council to leave it at 30, right?
60 to 30.
60 days to 30 days. So it wouldn't be an SDR.
That's correct. So I know some of you probably have very long histories of this, may have some memory of this. It did come up recently when we just did our recent zoning ordinance change, which again occurred over a 2-year period when we rewrote the zoning ordinance. And more specifically in that last, 3 months of our reviewing of that whole document, because the whole STR ordinance was so prevalent and had just been recently fleshed out and reached a final adoption stage by the town council in your review as well. There was again continued conversation about ADUs and should they be part of use as an STR. And during those discussions at that time, it was a no. It was held as a firm no. And why those decisions were reached in prior councils, prior legislative bodies, from the creation of ADUs in the zoning ordinance to begin with, which occurred starting in 2018. I'm looking at Bill because you were not saying you're the oldest one on the board, but you are. No, sorry. You're the longest serving tenured member.
Longest tenured.
There it is. Am I in the right time frame? Not pulling this forward after today. I think it was 2018, or it could have been a little earlier.
Could have been, I think it was earlier than that. Paul was around.
But we're going to have all of that.
20,
2018, I am, but we will have all of that in your packet next month. We'll give you all the history, all the, I won't say every discussion point, but we're gonna provide you the minutes from those respective meetings when this was first discussed. We're also getting an updated survey so that we have clear numbers, because the ADU issue of accessory structures, I'm gonna start there. I have accessory structures throughout this whole community, and some of those may have been used as accessory dwelling units before this ordinance ever happened in 2018. And so the town had tried to do an inventory of that information back then. And then, of course, now we have the listing or inventory of what got approved as an ADU when the conditional use permit process was authorized and put in place in this ordinance for several years. And then we now have the updated listing when then we took away the conditional use permit process and made it a by right use based upon the criteria being met in the ordinance. So we have 3 lists of properties following what I call grandfathered or legal non-conforming before this is ever in the ordinance versus when it was a conditional use permit versus what it is now as a by right use. So we are doing a little cleanup work on that. We're going back out to verify is it still being used in these capacities that we thought for ADUs, or not being used as an ADU at all. And so we're going to have all that for you for your consideration so we can start this conversation next month. We wanted to make you aware of that. And I think that was it.
Okay, so the next meeting is the day after Labor Day, September 2nd. Everybody that's sitting here is good with that? They're going to be here?
I am.
What is it again? The second you said?
Second of September. Labor Day is on the 1st this year.
Yeah, I think I'm back.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment? Say
Aye.
aye.
All right.
Nay? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.